This is Geometry, Unit 7, Day 16. We're working on the Quiz 3 review. This is a review on the law of sines and law of cosines. Written at the top of the page is the law of sines formula and also the law of cosines. We're giving you one formula and you can manipulate that to make the others. Like b squared would be a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of b. Notice that the letter that you use on the outside, the side that you use on the outside is not going to be a side that's on the inside, of course. But it is going to be the angle that you're using. A squared is not going to be a side that's used on the inside. So we're going to take b squared plus c squared minus 2 times bc cosine of a. So now we have to decide which of the laws is we're going to use for each type of problem here. It is giving us a hint that we use law of sines, but let's take a look at what they give us. Here they're giving us angle 30, but they're also giving us the side opposite. So they're giving you A and the angle A. So when deciding which sign to use, we know that we're going to use a fraction with the A's. We have the angle B, and we're looking for a segment called AB. So segment AB is really side C. It's across from angle C. So if I'm solving for side C, I need to be sure that I'm using the fraction that deals with the C's. Well, for that to be possible, I need to know what angle C is. Now, how could I figure out the value of angle C? You know that all three angles, because it's a triangle, are going to add up to 180. If I subtract the 45, and then I subtract the 30, I'll be able to come up with the value for the measure of angle C. This is 75, so that's going to leave us with 105 degrees. So now we know that this is 105. We know what letters we're going to end up using, so we plug in our numbers. Across from the 30 is side A. That's 12 sine of 30. C is what we don't know. Sine of 105. We're going to cross multiply. We only need to bring the sine of 105 up. Because the sine of 30, we don't want to bring it over to the C. We want to keep it away from the C to get C by itself. So we'll take our calculator. We'll say 12 times the sine of 105 divided by the sine of 30. And we're going to get 23/18. Here we're looking for angle B. For angle B, we're looking for it. We have side B, so we know that we're going to use B over sine of B. We're also given an angle and the side for A. So we know we're going to use side A and angle A. So we're going to plug our numbers in. Side B is 4. Angle B, we don't know, so we write down sine of B. A is 10, and angle A is 36. So if we're solving for the angle, notice how it's on the bottom of the fraction. When we cross multiply, we're going to cross multiply in both directions because I want to bring that off the bottom. So we have 4 times the sine of 36, which equals 10 times the sine of b. Well, sine of b is still not by itself. I need to get the 10 away from there, and the only way to do that is through division. You could reduce this fraction if you wish, but since we're going to use a calculator anyway, four times the sine of 36 divided by 10. And that's going to give us 0.2351. That is the sine of b. Well, if that's the sine of b, I need to figure out what angle b is. So I need to move the sine away from the b. So that's going to be sine inverse of 0.2351. And that should now be the measurement of angle b. Remember, we don't type in a decimal. We use the answer button on your calculator. So we'll say sine inverse by hitting second sign, and then you can use the answer button. Don't type in just those 4 digits. It's not as accurate. We get 13.59, and we could round that up to be 13.6. For number 2, use the law of sines. So let's draw our triangle out. We know that we have a 13-degree angle and a 22-degree angle. So I'm pretty sure that this next side is going to be, our next angle is going to be obtuse. Let's see if we even need to use that fact. Okay, so C and A are both acute angles. So I'm going to say C is 13 and A is 22. So angle B is over here, and it definitely would have to be obtuse. Side C is across from the 13 degrees, and that makes 9. We're supposed to figure out the length of BC. BC is over here. We'll call that side A. Well, in this case, I have 2 bits of information for C and only 1 for the A, and I can solve for the other. So I don't need to calculate out what this angle B would equal. So the A value is our unknown. Sine of 22, that's going to equal 9 over the sine of 13. Every time you use law of sines, you've got to have one of the fractions with numbers on top and bottom. The other fraction has to have a number only on top or on bottom. But it can't be in both. So 9 times the sine of 22 over the sine of 13. So 9 times sine of 22 divided by sine of 13. If your calculator puts in parentheses right after your sine, then you need to be sure to close them each time. Be sure that when you use your calculator, you know how it works with parentheses and the inverses and all the different values, the answer button. So A is coming out to be 14.987, so 14.99, and these units are centimeters. For this next one, you're standing 40 meters from the base of a tree. So here's your tree, and the tree that is leaning 8 degrees from vertical. Vertical would be straight up. So it's leaning 8 degrees off to the side. So this angle here is really 98. The angle of elevation from your feet to the top of the tree is 21. Well, remember, you're standing 40 meters from that base of the tree. So the angle of elevation is 21. We're supposed to write and solve the equation to find the slant height. The slant height is the distance that the slant goes. So we're trying to find the value over here. So to do that, we're looking at 98. We're looking at 21. We know that we want to use the x and the 21 because they're on the same page. But I don't know the length over here to the top of the tree. I could find out this angle, so I have that bit of information. So 180 minus the 98 minus the 21, that's going to give us 61 degrees. So that's 61. So now I'm ready to use x over the sine of 21, which equals 40 over the sine of 61. And when we cross multiply, we want to get the x by itself. So I'm only going to bring the sine of 21 over to the 40. I'm not going to bring the sine of 61 up. So x equals 40 times the sine of 21 divided by the sine of 61. So we'll use our calculator and type that in. So 40 times sine. Even if your calculator uses parentheses, you need to be sure to close that parenthesis. So when you hit divide, it's not dividing inside the calculation for sine. Sine of 61. That should give you 16.389, so 16.39. And those are going to be meters. On the back side, we're looking at the law of cosines, because we're going to solve for angle A, and the information that they've given us are all three angles of this triangle. So what's the measurement of angle A? Well, if we're looking for A, then we know we're going to use the formula for cosine to be a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times bc cosine of A. So we start to plug in, well, let's get the cosine of A by itself. Take your a squared, subtract the b squared across, subtract the c squared across, and divide out the negative 2 bc. That gets you the cosine of A all by itself. Then we can plug in our numbers. Across from the A is the 6, which is the length of A. Across from angle B is side B. And across from angle C is side C. 6 squared minus 8 squared minus 12 squared all over negative 2 times 8 times 12. That's our cosine of A. So we'll take our calculator and we'll say 6 squared. Well, careful here again. You need to use parentheses to represent the numerator of a fraction. 6 squared minus 8 squared minus 12 squared, and we can close off the numerator. You could either hit enter to figure out what the numerator was, but I'm willing to type in the exact way that the equation is written, then divide it, use parentheses for the denominator, use the negative key, times 2 times 8 times 12, and close that off. When we look at our answer, we're going to get a value of 0.8958. So 0.8958 equals the cosine of A. Now to get the cosine of A by itself, we need to use cosine inverse. And that's going to equal the measurement of angle A. But when we come over here to our calculator, we're going to keep the full value on your calculator, hit second cosine. We'll use the answer button, cosine inverse of the answer, and that comes out to be 2638. On this side, we're looking at the information that they give us. We don't have 2 bits of information for the same letter, so we know we have to use law of cosines. We're looking for side BC, so that's going to be over here, across from angle A, so we'll call that side A. So we know we're going to use A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2 times BC cosine of A. So we'll plug in our numbers. A squared equals, the value of B is across from side B, or side B is across from angle B, side C is across from angle C. 15 squared plus 30 squared minus 2 times 15 times 30 cosine of 50. So we can take our calculator and type that in. 15 squared plus 30 squared minus 2 times 15 times 30 times the cosine of 50. So that's going to come out to be A squared being 546.49. Now when you take the square root of that, writing down those 5 numbers is just fine, but be sure your calculation is with the answer button, so that A is going to equal 23.38. If you want to use approximate symbols, you're welcome to do that. For number 5, again, we're going to make a triangle. We can label that triangle with the letters in any order that we wish. Actually, I'm not going to use A, B, C. I'm going to use the letters that they have, D, E, and F. E is going to be across from angle E. D, side D, is going to be across from angle D. And side F is across from angle F. In this case, we're supposed to find the angle of E. So to do that, I'm going to take my side, which would be E squared, and that would equal D squared plus F squared minus 2 times DF cosine of angle E. Take your E squared and subtract the D squared and the F squared. divide that by 2 times df to get your cosine all by itself. So we'll come over here and type in, well, first let's write in the numbers. E is 16 squared minus 12 squared minus 17 squared all over 2 times 12 times 17. That is the cosine of E. If that's the cosine of E, we'll use our calculator to figure out what that decimal is. We need to use parentheses to represent the top of the fraction. 16 squared minus 12 squared minus 17 squared divided by negative 2 times 12, don't forget parentheses for the denominator, times 17. That gives us 0.4338. That is the cosine of E. So to get the E, angle E all by itself, we're going to do cosine inverse of 0.4338, and that should be the measurement of angle E. And so we'll use our calculator. Again, we're not going to use that 4-digit number. We're going to say cosine inverse of the answer. Gives us 64.29. Those are degrees. Alright, last one. You're heading to Boyne Mountain for a ski trip. Unfortunately, the state road, I-75, in Michigan is blocked because of a chemical spill. You have to get to this Tyne Castle Highway, which leads to the resort at which we're staying. We know that we're 12.8 with an angle of 18, 6 miles. We want to find that opposite side. So the triangle, if you're having troubles reading it here in the picture, we have an 18-degree angle here in the corner, 6 on one side, 12.8 on the other, and we're trying to figure out this side. We'll call it X. So here, notice that we have side angle side. So we're going to have to use law of cosines to help us calculate this out. So we're going to take our x squared to equal the 6 squared plus 12.8 squared minus 2 times those amounts times the cosine of our angle. We would take our calculator and say 6 squared plus 12.8 squared minus 2 times 6 times 12.8 times the cosine of 18. That comes out to be 53.75. So x squared equals 53.70, and that looked like we could round that 0.757, so let's call that 0.76. So to figure out what x actually is, we're going to take the square root of our 53.76. Again, we're not going to type in that number. We're going to say the square root of the answer, so we're being very accurate in our calculation. We come up with 7.33. Okay, and those are miles. Now to answer the question, we're coming across I-75, we're coming over to Tynecastle Highway, but we have to stop because of some chemical spill apparently, and we're going to veer off 18 degrees for 6 miles, and then we're going to cut back an unknown amount of miles, and that's what we calculated here at 7.33. So 6 and 7.33, we need to figure out how many extra miles we're going. So we have 7.33 and the 6, that's the new route that we're driving. That's going to come out to be 13.33. Now how much extra is that? Well, we only had to drive 12.8. So we're going to take our 13.33 and subtract the 12.8 to figure out that we have a 0.53 extra miles. So really that's not a big deal. It's not way out of our way. Maybe the speed limit's lower, but it's not way out of our way.